Africa. We address this briefing today as Ministers of the Justice, Crime Prevention and Security Cluster. Just 30 days left before the 29th of May, 2024, the date of our 7th general elections. These elections take place against the backdrop of our country's celebration of 30 years of democracy. Remarkable progress has been achieved by our people and our democratic government in the quest for a better life for all. In this briefing, we want to assure the public of the readiness of the JCPS cluster to execute our mandate of protecting the public, our country's strategic installations and infrastructure during the election period. We will do everything in our power to protect all those who want to exercise their constitutional right to vote. The 2024 general elections are said to be the most contested in the history of this country. Overall, 70 political parties are contesting these elections. 11 independent candidates and the national contestants are around 52. In total, there are over 14,903 candidates, all vying for 887 seats in the national and provincial legislatures. Ensuring the safety and security of all voters and officials is of paramount importance. As far as the coordination of planning by net joints and prof joints, our approach as the JCPS cluster is to ensure coordinated and intelligence-led planning of operations before, during, and post the elections, where multi-departmental teams work together to ensure that all South Africans exercise their constitutional rights without fear of intimidation or violence. This coordination is managed by the national and provincial joint structures of the JCPS cluster and the Independent Electoral Commission. Interdepartmental priority committees have been established at both the provincial and the national levels to coordinate safety and security planning. The General Election Security Plan, our law enforcement agencies have led in developing the National Security Plan, which has been approved by the ministers of the cluster. NetJoint has done a thorough threat and crime pattern analysis to inform the development of the security plan, and they want to ensure that nothing is left to chance. Based on the threat and crime pattern analysis, NetJoint has recommended a fit-for-purpose deployment plan that will deal with any potential threat of crime and violence in and around the voting stations and national and provincial result centers. We have also put measures in play to protect all public facilities that will be used for voting, the national key points, and other essential infrastructure that might be targeted by criminal elements. Our Constitution guarantees the right to freedom, the right to safety, and the right to be free from all forms of intimidation. In addition, the Criminal Matters Amendment Act of 2015 states that any person who tampers with or damages essential infrastructure is guilty of a criminal offense, and he or she can be sentenced to a maximum of 30 years if found guilty. The SABC Ministry and the SABC management have conducted several oversight roadshows in all the provinces, where they met with the station commanders of all police stations and district commissioners to assess the SABC state of readiness and the preparedness to ensure safety and security. The management of SABC and the ministry are satisfied with the level of readiness of all the provinces and districts to provide policing services before, during, and post these elections. The elections will be policed within the relevant prescripts and the laws, and police officers will enforce the law accordingly. We want to reiterate that the security plan will be constantly reviewed as the situation changes, and we will adapt as required. The DGs of the JCPS cluster will be deployed in various provinces to monitor the situation. The DGs will report what they observe on the ground to the relevant JCPS structures so that swift action may be taken where necessary. As the JCPS cluster leadership, we want to send a clear message to the public that no incitement of violence, lawlessness, destruction of infrastructure, or barricading of roads will be tolerated. Anyone who participates in any form of criminal activity will be dealt with. We therefore reiterate to all South Africans that political rights for the citizens are guaranteed and should not be violated. The JCPS will ensure that all the rights enshrined in the Constitution are not violated. Among these rights are the rights to freedom, to security and protection from all forms of violence from either public or private sources. Although the Constitution allows citizens to participate in protests and pickets and to present petitions, those who participate in these activities must do so peacefully and not violate the rights of those who do not want to participate. Anyone who is found to have contravened these critical provisions of the Constitution during this period will be met with the full authority of the state. Voting designated facilities, we want to say that voters registered for voting will be eligible to cast their ballots in all the designated facilities, including hospitals, foreign missions, and correctional centers. The IEC and the Department of Correctional Services continue to request family members of offenders to make necessary arrangements by delivering to the respective correctional facilities the identification documents. As far as readiness to handle different forms of disasters, the National Disaster Management Center has activated provincial disaster management teams to identify risks and to put mitigation measures in place for any disaster that may occur before, during, and post the elections. The National Disaster Management Center is working closely with the South African Weather Service to monitor the situation. Early warning messages will be issued when necessary. On the day of the elections, these teams will be deployed for 24 hours to monitor the situation. As far as courts' readiness to handle electoral crime is concerned, a protocol has been established between the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, SABC detectives, and the NPA to prioritize all election-related crimes. Prosecutors will stand by to prosecute offenses such as electoral fraud and corruption, removing or defacing political party and campaign posters, interfering with the duties of electoral officers, or forcing anyone to vote any way they do not wish to. We urge members of the public to report any crime related to elections to the nearest police station or to the IEC officers. On the collection of identity documentation and temporary identity certificates, to assist voters with the process of application for new identity documents and temporary identity certificates, and the collection of these documents, the Department of Home Affairs has opened its offices from 8 until 1 o'clock on Saturdays since April the 6th, and will continue to do so up to the 25th of May 2024. In addition, Home Affairs will open its offices on the voting day. Mobile offices are also scheduled to be opened in remote areas to assist with the application and collection of documents and other processes. The department will engage with councillors and other community leaders to decide on the dates, the times and venues of the operation of these mobile offices. Citizens can also use the branch appointment booking systems, which is available on the Department of Home Affairs website, to book appointments to collect their smart ID cards and green barcoded identity books. We encourage those who have applied for documentation and have received their SMS notifications to seize this opportunity by visiting their Home Affairs offices to collect these critical documents. On the sharing of false information and misinformation on different platforms. Democracy thrives on factual information and open discussions. Our citizens are encouraged to exercise caution when sharing information on the different platforms. Sharing false, unverified information, rumors or threats online or in person can have serious consequences. It can incite violence, confuse the voters, and undermine the democratic process. Individuals who use social media and electronic platforms to send threatening messages, incite violence, or cause harm to others will be charged. When an individual creates a video or share a post to the public, and where the post contains words, speech, or conduct that may encourage others to commit public violence, the aforementioned posts will make one guilty of the offense of inciting public violence, and the police will not hesitate to track that person down and to hold that person accountable. We also appeal to political and community leaders to exercise caution when speaking on public platforms. Do not make inflammatory or threatening statements, as you will be breaking the law, and may also encourage others to carry out criminal activities. We appeal to political leaders, as we say, desist. We urge the public to exercise caution before sharing information with others. Ensure that you double-check the accuracy of the information and be aware of the unintended consequences of your action. Members of the public should report any inflammatory statements to the law enforcement agencies. On the safety of voters, election officials, and the media. Ladies and gentlemen, the JCPS cluster will ensure that the national and provincial elections, the 7th, will be conducted in a safe and secure environment. No one has the right to intimidate and prevent others from exercising their constitutional rights to vote for a party of his or her choice. As the government, we want to issue a stern warning to anyone with intentions to disrupt the elections that the law enforcement officers will deal with them decisively and will put them behind bars. We encourage all eligible voters to go out in their numbers to the different voting stations on the 29th of May, 2024. We wish all South Africans well as they exercise their right to vote, and I thank you.
Thank you, Minister Modise. We will now take questions from the floor. Can I see if there are specific questions? If you have a question, when you raise your hand, please identify yourself and the media house from which you come, and then we'll then take the questions. And I also want to have an indication if there's somebody assisting us online with the questions online. We've got 2 hands this side. Go ahead, sir.
Morning, Raymond from the factory.
Start again your name and.
Raymond from the factory.
Okay.
I just want to know two policemen. Just over the weekend, a councillor was killed.
You have to speak up so that we could hear you.
Over the weekend, a councillor was killed in Rustenburg. I don't know what measures has the police implemented to address political violence, especially with the upcoming elections, and ensure the safety of political leaders and participants. And then can you provide details of deployment resources for police? How many police will be deployed, which areas, provinces do you think is highest or to see more police officers? And then are there plans for increased surveillance of the mountain of social media? Because we know the false information and is being spread on.
Repeat the last question.
Are there plans for increased surveillance or monitoring on social media? Because we know false information is being spread on social media platforms. And what will you do to address those things? Okay.
Jones from EMCA. I just maybe to the Minister of Police, are there real worries or fears ahead of the polls? Have you detected anything so far which is quite problematic and is intimidating towards voters? What have you found so far? Any preliminary findings? And to the Minister of International Relations, how are things going? Is everything expected to be smooth sailing, including the special voters who will be partaking in this democratic process who are living abroad? Thank you.
Should we take this first round of questions? Or go ahead, ma'am.
That was Hoto from Newsroom Africa to Minister Becky Cele. Have any hotspots already been identified? In the past elections, there have been a few contained outbursts of protests from residents of certain communities, usually around service delivery. It's almost become not terrible, but they happen. Will these be monitored in particular?
Can we take this round of questions and then we'll then go to this online questions? Can I invite Minister of Police first?
Jones, you ask question from a person who read the statement. Well, the question of the councillors, it's always the worry to the police and general South Africans. You would remember that was a sketch, especially in KZN some other time. And you remember that July 2018, a special team was formed to deal with political violence in the province of KZN. That team has expanded its mandate to other provinces, especially in Eastern Cape, Mpumalanga, Limpopo, has had good successes. But basically, where it is based in KZN has a lot of successes. Almost 338 people have been arrested there in that province, and 18 of them have been given life sentences. And and 36 of them have been given life given sentences between 10 and 73 years. So there've been a serious response on that one. But there are two councillors that have been recently murdered, one in Mpumalanga and one in Rustenburg, Northwest, as you said. Though it's not this team from KZN, there have been special teams that have been put in place to deal with that. I think in Mpumalanga, there is a progress that has been made to chase those people that have killed those councillors. But we are also working hard to work with the communities to prevent these things happening rather than only responding and reacting to them. So it's a matter that is on the eyes and hands of the law enforcement. Numbers to deploy. I even look at yourself. You were smiling with Jones when you asked that question, because that's the question that we don't answer, to come and give the numbers, how many will be there. The understanding is that the deployment will be adequate, is according to the plan. As we said, the statement says that is intelligence-led. Maybe it goes to your question, Sehoto. The South African government and the law enforcement are not there to suppress South Africans. Remember, there is a constitution. That's why people are allowed to practice their constitutional right to protest and all other things. But also, it puts a right on that you do that within the law yourself. So ours is not to say, don't do it. Ours is to monitor as you get out of the law. Yes, indeed, there are areas that have been identified. As you say the statement, the National Commissioner and the Ministry, we have moved around the country. We have met all station commanders in the country. We have out of 23,700 voting stations, we do have about 500 of them that are on the high risk, which means we are putting our eyes firmly on those. We have worked with the IEC. We have those that are giving us problems. We are having protests almost every day, service delivery, and that cannot be stopped but should be monitored and be done between the law. If you get out of it, indeed, I'm sure you have been reading, there are some gentlemen, if you can call them gentlemen, especially in KZN, that have been coming with these statements that calling violence. One of them has appeared in court already, arrested. The other one, the NPA, is taking the decision, is going to be appearing in court. So already the law enforcement have started doing their work, dealing with those matters. There's also Answer Jones if we have detected any form of problems on this. Indeed, as I've said, that almost 500 will be on high risk out of 23,000, but all others are low risk and very normal. as we look at things going forward. To arrest, I've spoken about. I don't know who answers social media. I think Minister Presidents will answer on the social media specifically. Thanks.
We'll have Minister Pando responding to the questions on the readiness of international voting. I think you can.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the question.
The mics are here for the television.
Now we are bangancedisa. Songene kwipaparazzi. Well, thank you for the question. Arrangements have proceeded as per normal with respect to voting overseas. The only challenge at the moment is to get the appeal processed with respect to the decision of the courts on the honorary consuls. As you know, honorary consuls are individual persons that are asked merely to represent South Africa as friends of South Africa. They are not missions of our country. So we're still proceeding with that appeal, but we are ready at our embassies as well as the consulates, as they're called. The matter of the honorary consuls is something that the courts still have to assist us with. But for all those who are registered to vote, proper arrangements have been made as per practice, and they will enjoy their right to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we then go to Takarani to get us the questions that are online?
Thank you, Minister. There are two questions so far from online. One is directed to you, to the Minister in the Presidency. And the question is coming from Sumen Naidu, who is a freelance journalist for Legal News South Africa. And the question is, can the Minister in the Presidency speak to preparations for the presidential inauguration, specifically how soon after the elections the event is expected to take place, and is the relevant planning by government departments underway for the event, and if the date has been set yet? And the second question from Atul, who is representing Heart FM, based in Cape Town, to the police minister. And the question is, Cape Town is a well-known gang city. Can you share how the police will monitor possible gang violence on election day? Thank you.
Minister of Police. You know, there's a problem when you are chairing people who are ungovernable. Let me start with the questions around the social media surveillance. We continue to monitor social media in terms of the things that are not allowed in terms of our law, but also to pick up fake and misinformation so that it can be communicated that information is fake and it's incorrect or inaccurate. And I must clarify that work is done under the GCIS and not the state security agencies, so that you don't conflate the roles. We do that from the GCIS side so that we are not accused of not following certain prescripts of the law. That is the first one. In terms of the inauguration, there is an interministerial committee preparing for the inauguration, and the details will be provided for when we brief about the inauguration. Now we are briefing about the readiness of the country in terms of elections. And Minister of Police, over to you.
Well, not only for elections that we're dealing with the Western Cape issues of gangsterism. I think we spend more time than anywhere else at the present moment with the National Commissioner. visiting many places there. We have been in Hanover Park several times. We have been in Tafelsig. We've been in Makaza. Yesterday I was in Atlantis. So we are really spending a lot of time there, but also working towards elections. We're putting a lot of resources in Western Cape. We'll be opening, I think, the third police station that we have built there in Western Cape in this administration, including the one that is under construction, the Tafelsig. There are yellow machines there working hard. But also, we have sent extra resources where we have sent a brigadier that deals with the special areas with an extra 83 members of the South African police that come from different parts of the country with an extra cars. Next week we'll be giving 150 new cars to police the Cape Flats and all that. Maybe the results show that last Monday, 2 big trials took place in Western Cape. One is under a guy called Maddock, that he appears with 15 people in the court. The other one is under Poison. I mentioned their names because they've already appeared in court. Donkey Poison, that is Jerome, with 16 criminals or suspects. But you also know that one top person there, called Ralph, because he's appeared in court, is in custody together with the wife and other 3 people. You would know that one top person that has appeared in court there is called Barra, who has been charged for the 19 dead bodies. The other one, who regarded as a top criminal there, is called Fire, who has been charged for the killing of Miss Goofy, who happens to be the deputy chair of the CPF in the area. So there have been serious top-ranking arrests that have taken place there, and of those top gangster leaders in the area. So if you ask if anything, well, the evidence is before us for the fact that already these people are appearing in court. But we are also working on cases of extortion. 153 people there in Western Cape have been arrested for extortion exercises and all that. So indeed, while there is that element of high criminality and gangsterism, there is a serious pushback by the state law enforcement agencies. And you are not going to end during elections, as we did not only start now during elections. We'll continue to make sure that Western Cape, like all other places, are free of criminality, and law agencies work with communities to achieve that peaceful living and coexistence of citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. I would have thought you would emphasize the need for the media to cover such cases, because last week when these cases, important cases against drug lords and gangster bosses were going on, there was very poor media coverage across all platforms. And we'll urge the South African media to say don't only cover sensational news, but also cover important news when we make progress in dealing with crime in our communities. I'll open for the last round of hands if there are any follow-ups. I've got one hand.
Katel Sokoto again from Newsroom Africa. Just for Minister Aron. Minister, in terms of the collection of IDs, what kind of volumes, I guess, of people coming to collect the important documentation at Home Affairs offices, particularly on voting day? Are you expecting large numbers, or are you already seeing trends which say that people are collecting their documents?
I don't see any other hand. I'll allow Takarani to read the last question that's online.
Thank you, Minister. So far, there are no further questions from online.
You have one question that talks about the deployment. It's important we read and deal with it so that the journalists don't accuse us of not reading their questions.
Thank you, Minister. I thought this question was answered, but let me ask the question. And I have asked the journalist to identify him or herself, but so far I have not got the response. But the question is, do you have an estimate of how many law enforcement officials will be deployed? Or is from Dumiso Mlilo from China? Thank you.
The question of Dumiso Mlilo was already answered, but it was already asked, but we have to read it so that they don't say there are questions that we skip, online questions, because that's what they accuse us of. I'll hand over to Minister Motsoaledi.
Thank you, Chair. Katlego, you just thought maybe the press conference should not end without me answering one question. Yeah, she looked and said, this is the only one who never spoke. Yeah, anyway, the issue of collection of IDs, yes, in the past we might have given an impression that it's a crisis because at some stage you'll find no less than 500,000 or 500,000 IDs uncollected in all Home Affairs offices in the country. And we're very curious because members of parliament just ask lots of questions. Why people apply for IDs and not correct them? We discovered that most of them are people who already have IDs, but they've got the green barcoded ID. They've now applied for a smart card. So they are not really in a hurry to come and collect because it's not that they don't have any identification. They were just modernizing their method of identification. So at the last count, the only ones that were new applications were 105,000. That's more or less 2 weeks ago. 105,000 IDs that were new. In other words, that were not applications of people who already have a form of identification. And they are being collected since we opened on the 6th of April, as the statement said. 30,000 IDs have already been collected. And I'm not counting the figures which happened recently, but since we opened on the 6th of April, they are collecting them every day. Our mobiles are also delivering them. And lastly, on the election day, as the statement said, all Home Affairs offices will open as long as voting stations are open. Any person who might have a mishap with their ID, either it get lost the day before, or they get mad, or burns in fire, or floods, etc., will have a right to go to any Home Affairs office to collect what we call a TIC, Temporary Identification Certificate, which the IEC accept for voting purposes. So for voting, you can have a green barcoded ID, you can have a smart card, you can also have a TIC, or a temporary identification certificate. And as I have said, those certificates will be available as long as voting stations are still open. And when the voting station close, will also close. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister and Ministers. This will bring us to the end of our briefing. There is a person who, Sumain Naidu, who says we didn't respond to her question on the inauguration, and we did respond and indicated there is an interministerial committee that is preparing for the inauguration. But today's briefing is about the Justice and Crime Prevention and Security Cluster on the readiness to protect and secure the elections. There will be a specific briefing from the inauguration interministerial committee. So we are not responding to questions related to the inauguration as of today. Thank you, and thank you for joining this briefing. Thank you, ministers.
Okay, we're good, nah? Let me know at 11. Yeah.
Yeah.